Well, this is the June issue, I think, which is the big issue as far as I'm concerned. It's about Atelier Interactive, and I have to attempt to show you with little video snippets how the paint actually works. Now, because interactive's not very well understood, particularly in America, so there must be a few people in America watching. Um, I have to take you through a process that's a little bit boring, but we won't understand where everything is at unless we do go through this. Now, I've done this ahead of time on a piece of ordinary paper, and I'm going to repeat the process in front of the camera on the Fredericks board. Now, the reason why I'm going to the great expense of using a Fredericks board is everyone knows what the Fredericks board is. It's a gessoed canvas board, and the quality of the gesso is quite good, so there isn't very much paint that's absorbed into the board itself. So we're looking at the atmospheric conditions. We're in Brisbane, and it's midwinter in Brisbane, and it's very comfortable temperature. And my guess at the humidity level, I should look at my smartphone so that I can tell you what it is, but it's definitely well below 80% humidity. Now, anyone that uses acrylics knows that if you go beyond 80% humidity, paint takes a long time to dry. So that applies particularly, I think, to people who live around Cairns in the wet season, know all about that. And I believe people in Auckland in New Zealand have the same problem. They have a very humid part of the year when they probably don't need to have a means of keeping their paint wet longer. They're probably wanting to get their paint dry. But this is about really understanding how Atelier Interactive works. And it takes only about 15 minutes delay time according to this sheet, although that's ordinary copying paper, so it's probably more absorbent than the Fredericks board. So we'll turn the camera off for a minute and I will prepare myself to perform. Well, we've got our setup here. I've saved a little bit of time by putting the paint out first. This is Matisse. This is Atelier Interactive. This is Golden Heavy Body. This is Liquitex. And this is Golden Open, which is not very well known in Australia, but we need to look at it. Now, to save everyone time, because I'm not a frightened person about getting paint on my finger, I'm going to just do this. And I'm going down to a thinner section at the bottom, and I've got a little bit heavier painting at the top. Now that's Matisse. This is Interactive. And this is Golden Heavy Body. Now, you might be noticing I've got a slightly thicker blob of paint at the top than I have at the bottom of the scraping, because one of the things I'm wanting you to be aware of is that the paint doesn't dry at the same time. The thinner application of paint dries faster than the thicker one, except for the Golden Open. Excuse me for having a dirty finger, but that was a nice bright cadmium red Golden Open, and I've mucked it up with the Phthalo Blue from Liquitex. Well, let's turn that into an example of how you can mix different brands of proper artist colour together, and they're quite compatible with each other. even with Golden Open, which is a slightly different beast from the rest of the colours that are put out there. Now, according to my chart up here, I have to put this away for 15 minutes. So it's 17 minutes past 3, and we'll turn the camera off and do something else. The main thing I want to show you today, and I'm pretty excited about it, is the range of mediums that we've just completed, because we've been redoing all of our mediums with a particular focus on thicker, more oil painty types of paint application, which haven't been very easy to do with acrylic paint in the past. Excuse me. Now, the first thing I want to show you is what I actually dislike as far as the surface finish is concerned. Can you see that that is very, very glossy? I need to move it around a little bit so that the camera catches the light. I find that unpleasantly glossy, and oil painters think that's a horrible plastic look, and I'm inclined to agree with them. You don't have to have a horrible plastic look if you know how to formulate your paint otherwise. And so at the present moment, up until now, when we're just releasing these new additives or mediums, which will be available on the market in Australia and New Zealand at giveaway prices, so that you really can't afford not to try them out once you see what they will do. And with the use of the camera and the videoing process, I hope that I can take you through a little bit better than words, and you'll be able to pick up on the things that you might really like to try out and use. So I wouldn't be hurrying to buy the gloss or heavy gel gloss that we currently have. Now, to me, the gap in the lineup of things, because I see mediums as a sort of lineup going from thick to middle thick to mid viscosity to a thinner viscosity. So it's a gradation of viscosities, and then there are two mediums that are made specially for free flow and for Joe Sonia, which both have a matte finish, and I didn't want to disturb the matte finish, so those mediums dry without altering the surface finish of the painting, and they can be used with Atelier Interactive or Atelier A2 if you want to. But we'll concentrate mainly, because we've already done this session on free flow, we'll concentrate mainly on the mediums that have been designed to go with Atelier Interactive or Atelier A2. So to me, this thicker medium has been sort of sitting like a shag on the rock. It doesn't relate to anything else. It's very hard to incorporate it into a painting when it's so much thicker than everything else, and it leaves bright glossy blobs wherever you put it into use. So I think that's probably a fairly good reason why it's not particularly popular. Now, I know not everybody wants to do thick paintings, but one of the things about oil paint is that it can be used in a lot more textural kind of ways than acrylic paint is normally used. So the thing about interactive is not only being able to extend the drying time, it's about how to incorporate these mediums, which I'm finding quite exciting. So we'll turn the camera off for a second again. We've got a handheld camera here so that we can zoom in on some of this, but this is a sort of thing which mightn't look terribly meaningful to you when you just see it on a slab of paper like this, but when you see it in a masterly use such as Elizabeth Cummings does with oil paint, then I think you'll see the desirability of having an acrylic that can kind of emulate some of the effects that she gets with oil paint. So there's a lot of scumbling and scratching back and texture and scraping through to the colour underneath, and a lot of brush marks that you don't normally see in acrylics. So there's a lot going on, and it varies from one part of the painting to another. And this isn't a painting, obviously, it's just a swatch, but it gives you an idea. There's a fair bit going on there in terms of surface activity. So I want then to go upstairs where we've got some of Elizabeth Cummings' paintings and have a look at how that can be interpreted into a painting. So it doesn't really matter that her paintings are oil paintings, because those simply illustrate what can be done with paint when it's manipulated in this manner. And now for the first time, and there's a particular medium that I'll hone in on, it is possible to use acrylics in this way, and I think it's going to very much broaden the whole acrylic experience. So let's end it there and we'll go up and look at some of Elizabeth's paintings.